Tonight's forum is sponsored by Common Cause in Wisconsin. Jay and Common Cause have been doing forums like this, trying to find ways to improve government for years now, right, Jay?
Yes.
I've been in
Too many.
and we thank them for that. Jay also wanted me to mention that the refreshments in the back, you can get up and get them at any time if you're feeling parched. Excuse me. This evening's public forum was co-sponsored. I want to tick them all off because they all helped. Edgewood College Social Science Department, the American Association of University Women, Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Alliance for Retired Americans, the League of Women Voters of Dane County and of Wisconsin, and the Madison Institute. We're going to have each of our speakers give a brief opening statement, about 5 minutes after I introduce them, about 5 minutes each, and then we hope that all of you will, or at least some of you will participate by asking questions. We're going to try to keep it to reform efforts in Wisconsin, but that's a pretty big topic. First I'll introduce Senator Dale Schultz, who just announced his retirement after more than 3 decades in the legislature. Dale grew up in Madison. He graduated from West and from UW-Madison. I think he was a championship rower. I've heard that story before. Champion at the university. Tallest man in the legislature, right? Dale was elected to the Assembly in 1982 and the Senate in 91, representing the 17th Senate District, so that's southwest Wisconsin. Dale's been a strong advocate for many good government proposals. And in recent years, he's teamed, they've been a dynamic duo, and Dale Schultz. And they are the ones, among others, including, I think, Fred's on that bill now, the Redistricting bill, that would mirror Iowa's fine example. Senator Fred Risser needs no induction, but I'll give a short one. Also a Madison native, longest serving state legislator in the nation. His father, grandfather, and great-grandfather all served. And as Jay brought up earlier, I think all from different parties they served, right, Fred? So he's, what is that, quad partisan or bipartisan? His family is. Fred was first elected in the Assembly in 1956 to the Senate in '62. So he makes Dale look like a newbie. And Fred is probably best known for clearing the air with his smoke-free Wisconsin bills that have become popular even with our editorial board. How about that, Fred? You even won us over. Andrea Kaminski is Executive Director of the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin. Did you put your hand up? There she is. She has testified before state and federal legislative committees on voting rights and other issues important to the League. She came to the League in 2004 with a background in nonprofit management and women's issues. Before joining the League, she was co-founder and executive director of the Women's Philanthropy Institute. And she was director of development for the Meritor Foundation. Stephen Davis is a professor of political science in the social science department here at Edgewood College. He's taught here since 1994. And in 2012, he's a recipient of an Excellence in Undergraduate Teaching Award. He's originally from Chicago and got his PhD at Loyola. Steve's focus is American political institutions, interest groups, media, and environmental policy. Dave Blaska, down on the end there, of Madison. He writes the conservative blog Bring It, right, Dave?
That is correct.
For In Business. He worked for the Tommy, I'm going off the cuff here a little bit, Dave, but he worked for the Tommy Thompson administration. He served for years on the Dane County Board, and he also worked as a journalist at publications, including the Cap Times. That was before his polarity switch. And Jay Heck, many of you know Jay. He's executive director of Common Cause in Wisconsin. He previously worked as a top legislative aide at the Capitol, and he was communication director of one of the now disbanded partisan legislative caucuses before he worked with Common Cause to get rid of them. So he was on both sides there and wound up on the good side. Jay moved to Wisconsin in 1988, having worked for a Pennsylvania congressman and for independent presidential candidate John Anderson. Does anybody know who Anderson's vice presidential pick was?
Yeah.
All right, Wisconsin's own Pat Lucy. So we're going to start with Jay. I'm Scott Milfred, editorial page editor for the Wisconsin State Journal. And I'm in charge of the opinion page, but I won't be opinionating tonight. I'm just going to try to keep order. Jay, go ahead and just give us your speedy overview of our situation here in Wisconsin.
I will, and thank you very much, Scott, and Wisconsin State Journal. And thank you all for coming tonight. It's kind of a nasty night out. You never know what kind of turnout we're going to get. I actually got stuck at the bottom of the long Edgewood Drive, and fortunately the policeman helped push me back up the hill every time. But I'm glad that you all made it. We've been doing these for 6 years around Wisconsin, and we've done them in almost every city in the state. We haven't been to Superior yet, but almost every city of any size in Wisconsin. This is our third time in Madison and our first at Edgewood College. And I'm grateful to Edgewood College, Professor Davis, for setting this up. Thank you for coming. This is an issue, political reform, that I would say normally is a back burner for a lot of people. It's always an important issue, but it never sort of ranks at the top of people's priority list. But I got to tell you, this year, 2014, we're finding that political reform, and particularly the issue of nonpartisan redistricting, seems to have struck a chord with a great many Wisconsinites. I think they get the sense that we need to have a state where we have elections that, at least at general election time, are more competitive than they are now, largely because of the way the lines have been drawn. Secondly, that we have a process that's not as hyper-partisan as it is now, and they have a process that doesn't cost the taxpayers of Wisconsin $2.1 million that could be done in a way that people have confidence in, and that would not have political considerations in mind when those lines are drawn, but rather things like communities of interest, the compactness of a district, the geographical proximity of the district, and communities that make sense, rather than have, well, and I might say squares are good, triangles are nice, rectangles are good, not the lizards or the oddly shaped districts that you see in many of the districts here in Wisconsin at both the state legislative and congressional level. Gerrymandering is after the salamander, and that's where the word comes from. So I think we can do better there. I hope we'll discuss that tonight. A couple other quick things. Voting rights in Wisconsin. In 2011, we passed what was the most restrictive, most prohibitive, extreme photo voter ID law in the nation. It was more extreme than what you would see in Mississippi or Alabama or Georgia or South Carolina. We've since been bypassed by North Carolina, so they now have the distinction of having the most extreme voter photo ID law in the country. Ours is not in place. Ours has been enjoined by the courts, and it continues to be enjoined by the courts. And I have a fairly good hunch that the current ID law will never become operative in Wisconsin, although there are others that are being proposed as we speak and may be brought to the floor of the legislature soon. The Citizens United decision of 2010, as many of you know, overturned 100 years of settled law, opened up the floodgates for corporations, unions, and and other special interest groups to be able to pour unlimited money into our elections to influence the outcome. There had been prohibitions on what those entities could do until that decision. In that same 5-4 decision, however, the U.S. Supreme Court, having realized they were opening up the floodgates, also advised that the Congress and legislatures all over the country ought to enact into law disclosure of electioneering type communications, so at least the citizens of the states would know what's hitting them at election time, at least who's paying for them. We haven't done that in Wisconsin. The Democrats failed to do it when they held the majority for 2 years, and the Republicans have not done it either. Finally, another issue that we may touch upon tonight is judicial selection. As you know, in Wisconsin, we have always elected our Supreme Court justices. We elect judges. We even elect, or did until shortly, coroners. We love elections, and we like to have them on every level. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but the question becomes what's happened in the last several years. Some would say we're grumbling because conservatives have been elected to the court. I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is that the outside money that has now poured into our judicial elections at the Supreme Court level drowns out the actual pictures and views of the candidates for the Supreme Court, and I question whether they can remain impartial when so many outside interest groups have poured money into these elections, and many of those same people that have poured money into the elections then come before the Wisconsin Supreme Court for relief. I don't know necessarily what the answer is, whether we should go to merit selection, whether there should be a combination of the two, whether we can reform our campaigns enough. I just know that the status quo probably isn't acceptable to most of the citizens of Wisconsin. So those are the issues. I want to close with two things. Number one, I'm glad that we were able to add as a last-minute addition David Blaska, who is on my far right in many ways. But it's wonderful that he's joining us tonight. He will present a distinctly different view than certainly what I presented to you tonight. Secondly, I want to say one word about Senator Schultz and Senator Risser. And that is that in 2006, we came closer to comprehensive campaign finance reform in Wisconsin than we've come in 30 years and have since. And that was because Senator Michael Ellis, who was a Republican from Neenah, put forward a compromise campaign finance reform bill that would have capped spending for the governorship at $4 million a year, would have required the disclosure of outside groups that now flood our airwaves, would have eliminated campaign fundraising during the budget, and also would have gotten rid of the legislative campaign committees, which are the committees that the leadership controls and doles out money to rank and file members. Governor Doyle didn't want that, and he managed to turn most of the Democrats in the legislature and the Senate against it, because he was running for re-election and he didn't want to be capped at $4 million in 2006. Most of the Republicans didn't want it because they didn't want to have any restraints on spending or any of the other restraints that were in this bill. Senator Dale Schultz was the Senate Majority Leader. He didn't necessarily have the votes, but he thought it was the right thing to do. He brought the bill to the floor of the state Senate. Most of the Democrats peeled off in deference to Jim Doyle. Senator Fred Risser did not. Senator Fred Risser and one other Democratic senator said, we've got to do this. We've got to start somewhere. Had that law been passed and enacted into law in 2006, I think we'd be in a much better position than we are now. And most importantly, it would have been bipartisan. And that's the kind of reform that Wisconsin needs if we're ever going to regain the civility and the good place that this state once was. So I thank you for coming. I welcome your participation, and I'm pleased to have this great panel. And we'll move on.